guys, before we jump into the episode, I've got some exciting news to share. Our brand new website has just been launched and is live at paulbegleypodcast.com. This is now your one-stop hub for everything podcast related. So instead of scouring all over the internet looking for links to the show, you can stream every episode, watch our latest YouTube videos, check out our guest directory to see who's been on the show, and even read our brand new blog for extra content. And if you're enjoying this podcast, we encourage you to leave a review right on the site. There's no login hassle needed to do this. Everything's right there. It's easy to access, mobile friendly, and it's built for you. So while you're listening today, take a second to check it out. paulbegleypodcast.com. Now back to the show. Joining us today is producer, researcher, visionary. He's a guy who likes to spend a lot of time outside in the great Colorado outdoors. He is the founder of the Leak Project, once known as a conspiracy theorist, has since turned into a conspiracy factualist. I don't know if that's a word, but welcome, Rex Bear.
Hey, how the heck are you? Thanks for the opportunity.
So we're doing fantastic.
We are, Rex.
Looks like you got some coffee. Pastor's got coffee.
I've got coffee. Yeah.
I don't have coffee. I already had three rounds of that, so I'm probably a little bit shaky over here. So
Right on.
Rex, I know you got some new information that you wanted to share and break with us. You can share anytime you like, but we can hold off a little bit. And I was just going to jump straight in and ask you the first question that I had listed here.
Yeah.
So Rex, from your research with paranormal, UFOs, and ancient mysteries, is there one thing that really sticks out to you that's changed your thinking and still puzzles you today?
It's changed my thinking. Well, definitely changed my thinking. And as far as puzzling me, the closer I think I get to the truth, something comes out and just shatters it. It's like whatever this phenomena is, whether it's extraterrestrial or interdimensional or all of the above, this paranormal phenomena, it seems to always be just a little bit ahead of us. As far as the technology and the mindset, but it seems to kind of adapt and evolve with us to an extent. I've been doing research now in the ET phenomena for, I'm 47 now, and I've been researching it since I was a little kid because of the experience that I had when I was a toddler. I think that really kind of changed my perception. And I've talked a little bit about that before, where I saw these beings basically looking at me. And I was looking at them, and I was in my crib. I wasn't even 2 years old yet because we moved out of that house by the time I turned 2. That's how I know. And I described the room in detail years later. But I thought I was looking at like Star Wars figures. That's how my mind conceptualized it, because I saw Star Wars growing up as a kid, big fan, and they were like insect looking. And so that really took me into the ET research, and because I wanted to meet other people that had similar experiences. And actually, I've met a couple of people that have shared their experiences as far as what they saw when they were a kid that seems to match what I saw. And one of them in particular is very skeptical about ETs and UFOs and such. He doesn't necessarily think they're ETs, and I don't even know if they're extraterrestrial. But what I do know is whatever I saw wasn't human. And I guess kind of like an ant's head. But I thought growing up they were the ant people. So I did a lot of research into the ant people, and I've made some amazing friends that are native, Hopi elder, a Navajo elder, a Zuni elder, just to name a few that I've become close friends with. And my Hopi elder friend, Maleva, I call him Grandpa Maleva, he says that there's no way what I saw could have been the ant people. He's like, there's no way they would have showed up in your house. And then there's a lot of misinformation about the ant people being the Anunnaki, because somebody came out and said that Anunnaki means ant friend. And so I thought for a while, the ant people are the Anunnaki? Is that what I saw? And no, not even in the same league. Complete disinformation. The ant people are not the Anunnaki. It's not even in the same league. But whatever I saw that I thought was ant people or life-size Star Wars figures when I was a little kid, other people have had similar experiences. Now, they could be interdimensional. It could have been a part of my imagination. I don't know, but it still impacts me to this day, and I still get emotional when I think about it. So then I started doing a lot of interviews with people that have claimed to have experiences with ETs and non-human intelligence. And people that I've talked to off air, I have family and friends that have had experiences many, many times with what people might call the grays, but they're not even convinced that they're aliens. So let me just make it clear. I don't remember ever having an experience where I was taken on a ship or like experimented on by ETs. I don't have any recollection of that. What I do have is the experience that I had when I was a toddler. And the people that I had talked to that are close friends of mine that have had similar experiences with these beings, they don't know of any like spaceships or anything else either. So they might be separate from the actual grays. What I saw, I don't necessarily think was the grays, unless it's some type of implanted memory that they put so that I wouldn't freak out. Now, to take this further, doing years and years and years of research and interviews, I've met, like I said, some amazing people and heard some amazing testimonies that are absolutely genuine. And then I've also talked to a lot of charlatans along the way, people that have made, elaborate claims that are complete nonsense. And I'm not going to say names. I just want to make it very clear that a lot of people out there that try and convince you aliens are real they're not necessarily like government shills, but they're shills in their own mind. It's a very real phenomena. So for people to come out and start coming up with their own stories and making stuff up, that's what really bothers me as far as a personal thing. Like, to me, that's almost personal because I've had my own experiences and friends and family. But with that said, when you learn to kind of break out of the mindset of everything you see that seems extraordinary is alien, because that's like, I was that guy for many years. Like, I would look at Petroglyphs and I'd be like, oh my gosh, man, it's an alien. Yeah. Those are aliens. But this should answer your question even more. A lot of the research that I've done into what many people think are ancient aliens or ancient astronauts, or when you read through certain mythology or scriptures or religious passages, even all the way to ancient cuneiform and ancient Sumer, which is one of the oldest languages that we know about publicly, go back 6,000-7,000 years, I've found a connection with many of these teachings linked to the stars. Give you an example. Many Kachinas in Native American teachings, Kachinas, and some of them are called star people. They'll have these very elaborate outfits and headdresses on when they do the dances and stuff, like when the people actually do the rituals and the dances and pay homage to the star people. A lot of these Kachinas that some people think are made up or relate to extraterrestrials are actually star constellations. So that's pretty cool. You can look at these faces and go, oh, there's the Big Dipper right on the Kachina head. Makes a little bit more sense. So when a lot of these stories that talk about ETs and aliens or UFOs, they're not talking about the kind of aliens or ETs you're thinking of. They're talking about the stars. They're talking about the alignments and the constellations and the zodiac. So I find that fascinating, and I find it also, like, at first I was kind of disappointed, right? I would see these petroglyphs in Utah, and I have some petroglyphs I want to show you that look like aliens. They look like space aliens. I've got petroglyphs in Utah. I've taken photos of petroglyphs in Utah just recently that look almost identical to carvings and deities in India and Cambodia.
Wow.
And Gurwa.
Wow.
Yeah.
And once you see it, there's no, like, it's like, oh, wait a second. So we are definitely connected to something much higher. And the stars and the constellations and the zodiac had a huge impact on our ancestors, and still to this day, the way that the like many bills are passed and certain events take place under particular planetary alignments.
I can ask the question, Rex. We interviewed about 15 people who had encounters. When you were a year and a half old, or whatever you were, might have been under 2,
Yeah.
Did these beings did they speak to you?
I don't remember them talking to me.
Okay, so that's a consistent theme. No one said that they spoke to them, although some said yes, but they did speak to me telepathically in my mind. But none said a word to them. And I found that that's what we're finding. Now, I'm sure there's people who are saying, no, yes, they did. They spoke to me. But Paul, remember everyone we talked to, when we asked that question, they always say, no, but telepathically, I knew exactly what they were saying. Okay.
Yeah.
You know.
And I mean, and sometimes a lot of people, it's accounts as well. It's, we didn't speak to anybody that it was a really recent account either. So,
No.
Obviously there's fuzzy memories as well. So that could end up, and I don't want to say that this was for any of our guests, but that could end up being over multiple years of having an experience. Sometimes you conceptualize things in your mind and then piece things together of what actually did happen when that may not have actually been what was occurring at the time.
Yeah, it's hard to know.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted that one question. That was the only question I had on that, because I just wonder if they spoke to Rex.
Yeah.
No, I guess not. Okay.
They're like, we come in, face.
Yeah. Yeah, they did not. Take me to your leader. No, you didn't get any of that. Okay. All right.
Nano.
No.
It was so, I get like literally goosebumps when I think about it still to this day. I'm 47 and I still get emotional.
Oh, sure. You're going to. Yeah, it's an incredible experience here, and you're not going to forget it. No way. The fact you even remember it under 2. Look, I'm having a hard time remember stuff, anything under 50 at this point. Okay, so, anyway.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was, well, and also to add to what you're saying, to validate that on my research, everybody that I've talked to that I genuinely believe their experiences that they've told me about, they say the same thing. It's a telepathic type communication.
Okay.
But what the experience, like I said, the whatever I saw, I don't necessarily think it was the Greys, I'll explain why. Because, well, I mean, where should I start?
You can show us some if you have some things you want to show. You
okay. Yeah. So we'll get to the Greys in a minute, because I've actually somebody recently reached out to me. I can't say who it is, but they had a security clearance and in the military, and they've already done regressions with people that are high up in the echelon as far as the official disclosure movement. Mm-hmm. And so some of their information is going to come out shortly. But I will describe some of their experiences, as well as 2 people I know that I'm very close to that have had almost identical experiences in different places of the world, and they've never even met each other. And they're not writing books, they're not doing podcasts about it. They're being very quiet. They're asking me to be quiet about it. So they're letting me talk about certain things, but I just can't release their names yet. And I will as soon as I can, if I can. But let me go to what we were talking about here first. So one of the questions you had asked me also, Paul, off air, was about like, what evidence do I think there is that validates extraterrestrials? And there's actually they're called the Serapeum. I think the Serapeum is one of the best pieces of evidence of non-human intelligence. These are granite boxes that weigh, I think just the lid itself weighs about 10 tons.
Whoa.
And these granite boxes are built to precision that we would have a tough time duplicating today. We could make a box of such stature with such accuracy today, but to actually move these boxes, because they're so heavy, would be the difficult part. Now, there's 20 of these boxes, and the official story is that they were used as coffins or sarcophaguses for royal bulls. And that makes me think of Royal Bull. And
yeah, okay. I mean, you're like, this can't be. I mean, why would anybody? So yeah, let's see that. Let's see that thing.
Okay, so
Israel, blow that up. 1 second.
Now there were later, they did find bulls inside of these coffins, and they actually said, so that's what made them say, these giant sarcophaguses that weigh thousands and thousands of pounds of black granite were moved to these locations underground in Egypt so that they could bury bulls.
I don't believe it. Look at this thing, though. I mean, look at it's magnificent, really. black granite, and put up, and they buried it deep underground. What is this, in the pyramids or just in tunnels?
It's under it. It's actually close to the pyramids.
Okay.
So I'll show you right here. What makes it even more difficult? So it would be difficult enough to make one of these boxes and mine the black granite to produce it, to create it.
Right.
It would be even more difficult to move it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you can see right here. This is the burial vaults where these things are located. There's 20 of them. And it almost looks like an antenna underground. Now, we're looking at it from a bird's eye view, but if you look at it, it kind of reminds you of an antenna almost.
Yeah, I see that.
Are where they put them. And the underground city itself, or the underground structure, my theory was made far later, actually. I think that these boxes were put here specifically, these black granite boxes. My theory is on this is the Watchers from the Book of Enoch actually are the ones that established civilization here on Earth when a major cataclysm took place on Mars. And I'll show you my theory on that. And I have actually got a file directly from the CIA.gov/vault, a remote viewing project that they basically, so back in the 80s and 90s, there was a project called Project Stargate. Yeah. Where you had, and you also had like the gifted classes where kids would be like taken out of class, and there would be certain psychic experiments done to see if they had psychic abilities, and the CIA was overlooking that because they're looking for psychic spies, basically. Well, what they also worked on was Project Stargate, where they were remote viewing different locations. A lot of it was here in on the planet, but some of it was actually off planet. And one of those files was, where's it at? Yep, right here. This file right here. So this is directly from the CIA.gov/vault, and it was done in 1984. Mars exploration, May 22nd, 1984. You scroll up a little bit further, you can see the CIA report here. The way that this was done, so remote viewing is, there's certain protocols that take place in remote viewing. If you ever talk to somebody and they're like, oh, let me remote view that real quick for you, and then they close their eyes and they're like, okay, this is what I saw. Okay. That's not remote viewing.
Yeah, okay.
That's kind of using your imagination. I'm not saying they're wrong, but remote viewing is double blind protocols. So typically a remote viewing session, if you use the military protocols, is they will give you an envelope. You don't open the envelope. The person that's giving you the envelope doesn't even know what's in the envelope. Usually it's just numbers. And they give you the envelope and say, okay, remote view, what we want you to remote view. And so there's somebody that's actually going to have, the person that starts the project of remote viewing is going to have something on file that they want you to remote view. So they can, so if you remote view what you're supposed to, they can prove it, double blind proof that you actually remote viewed what they wanted you to, and you had no idea what you were remote viewing before you went into it. There are actually military protocols in place for this.
I'm not going to say it's a DARPA program, remote viewing, but it is definitely a government program and technique. People are trained on how to do that in the federal government.
Yes.
As part of the espionage, program. I mean, and I've read a lot of different accounts, and I've heard people talk about who were in it. Matter of fact, there's some documentaries about it, how the U.S. government used this technique to spy on the enemy. I mean, basically, to actually see from above or to somehow spy the enemy. It is a technique.
And they're really good at it. I've read a multitude of declassified files where remote viewing sessions were done to spy on like drug dealers. And they could even see the kind of shoes they had. They could see the kind of yacht they were on. They could see what they were throwing in the water, like they were throwing major drugs in the water for pickup later. They were able to remote view all of that.
It's crazy.
And so it's fascinating. And the thing is,
ancient wise, Tecumseh, and when in Indiana, I have a home. My home is just around the corner from what's called Tecumseh's Rock, okay? It is where the prophet, his brother, would go and sit on this rock It's just around the corner from my house. And he would sit on top of this rock, and he could see where the cavalry was. Okay, and this is up around Tippecanoe in Indiana. And he could see how many soldiers and how many they were and where they were at. And then he would go and tell his brother Tecumseh. And Tecumseh would then go set up the Indians for the ambush. This is why it was so difficult to beat Tecumseh and to take out those Indians there in that area because of the brother, who they called the prophet. But actually, I think he was using the same technique, this type of remote viewing type technique that he somehow knew how to do. I don't know.
Is this also referred to as the looking glass technology, or is this totally separate things? I'm trying to...
I think that's...
The looking glass technology is somewhat of a, I guess you could say, a conspiracy, but it might be legit. But that's more of a computer technology.
Okay.
It's supposed to bend light or something like that and allow for you to see certain pockets of the future potentially. That's the research that I've done. I could be wrong on that.
Right.
But now they've got quantum computers and supercomputers that can predict.
Yeah, that's crazy.
No.
So anyway, I didn't want to get you off track because that when you were showing that, do you know, is that those black granite boxes, is that in Egypt?
Yes, that's in Egypt.
Okay.
That's by the Great Pyramids.
Okay.
And so, and also I wanted to bring up this as well, that Cairo, the native tongue of Cairo is El Caira, and that means Camp of Mars. So that's pretty cool. Camp of Mars. Yeah.
Okay. El Caira.
I like that.
All right. So, okay. So, and we, so go ahead. Okay. Because I still don't know why in the world would you put 20 of these black granite. I mean,
they got to bury the royal balls.
I mean, unbelievable. Are you serious? Okay, go ahead.
And I'll get to what I think that these sarcophaguses are actually. They're most likely batteries. They're either batteries or some kind of trans. Because they're anyway. So this is a remote viewing project that was done in 1984, where they remote viewed Mars, and the person that remote viewed Mars. And this tells you the protocol. So right here it says the method of the site acquisitions. It's a sealed envelope coupled with geographic coordinates. The sealed envelope was given to the subject immediately prior to the interview. The envelope was not opened until after the interview. In the envelope was a 3x5 card with the following information: the planet Mars, time of interest approximately 1 million years BC. So then the coordinates are given, but he has no idea what the coordinates are because they're all in this envelope. But he remote views the first location, these coordinates. And if you type in these coordinates here on Mars, you're going to love this.
What does it show?
Sidonia.
So
what is
show me Sidonia.
Sidonia, Mars. This was first discovered from the 1976 Viking orbiter satellite that took images of the face.
The face. I've seen this face. Yeah.
And the pyramids. Now, years later, NASA attempted to debunk the face, saying it was, what do they call that? When you look at the clouds, pareidolia.
Yeah.
They said, oh, it's pareidolia. It's just the shadows. It's not a real face. And they showed computer renditioned, computer created images of the face that it doesn't look like a face as much. It kind of does, but it doesn't look as much. And they're saying, oh, these are the better photos. No, these Viking images are far better images. And you can actually go and look at these images directly on NASA's website and see the originals. But not only is there the face right here, it looks like an Egyptian face almost.
Yeah,
like
that's from the satellite. The what was the name of the satellite?
The Viking.
The Viking
is either 1976 or 1974, and the face is cool enough. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Yeah, it is.
You're not alone there. If you go to the west, or actually I guess it would be to the east, you will see what looks like other pyramids.
Yeah.
Scroll down here. Look at
look at that one.
5-sided pyramid.
Yeah.
5 sides.
And that's not a volcano rock. I mean that's not from a volcano, or is it? I mean, that don't look like it. That looks like something created.
Yeah, it looks a lot more symmetrical.
Yeah. Really.
This is the Mars Global Surveyor right here. if you want to look at this. And then they've got higher resolution photos that you can look at. So you can look at images of the face that are much higher resolution. But this is the first location that was remote viewed.
Okay, I got you.
Wow. And so we go back to the remote viewing right here. Boom. What this guy says. I want to say it looks, I don't know, it sort of looks like I kind of got an oblique view of a pyramid or a pyramid form. It's very high. It's kind of sitting in a large depressed area. He describes it to a T in this remote viewing session.
I see.
Well, they continue to change timelines. They have him go a little bit further out, and he sees people. He sees beings that are very large in stature and very skinny.
Wow.
Then he goes back later and he sees a major cataclysm that takes place that wipes out civilization there as it is known. He then follows the path and discovers that there's these beings in these cryogenic chambers, basically, that are waiting for something to happen. Like there were people that were sent out to look for somewhere else to live while they're living in their cryo chambers, waiting for thousands of years, basically, is what it describes. And they pretty much lose hope. It also describes what is seen that creates the cataclysm on Mars. And what this guy sees is a comet with a major tail. He describes the comet as almost a planet-sized comet. So that correlates with some of the Velikovsky theories, the electric universe theories, where people predicted that there was something that caused Venus and Mars to break orbit. Venus took off like a comet. And Venus created so much static electricity because it broke out of orbit. It started creating these electrical arcs, these giant lightning bolts, or if you've ever heard about the thunderbolts of the gods. And when I'm referring to that term, folks, I just want to make it very clear. I'm not referring to the divine providence. I'm not referring to the creator of the universe. In ancient mythology, there are many gods with a lowercase g. It's more like a title. Right. So I don't want to upset anybody when I say that, because I know that, anyway. So, it's very different. It's a very different aspect. Thousands of years ago, people looked at the gods much differently than we look at the creator of the universe or God Almighty today.
So now, Immanuel Velikovsky, in his book Worlds in Collision, does talk about this very thing with Mars and Venus, that something happened in the heavens and threw them off course, or changed their course, maybe is a better word. And that this cycle is coming back again. And then we talk about Planet X, and we talk, that's another webinar, but we talk a lot about that something shook the heavens. And even Christ said that when he returns, the heavens are going to be shaken. There's going to be strange sights and things are going to happen. So it's like there's another cycle. It's coming back again. It's kind of divinely put into play. So interesting that it's in this report.
It is. It's fascinating. Now I need to correct what I said earlier. When the person did the remote viewing on Mars, he had no idea it was Mars. That was in the envelope that he was given, but they did specifically give him the coordinates to move to. So they said, "Now I want you to move to 4,
I see.
8, 9."
Yeah, and so,
but he had no idea.
Still didn't know what he was going to see. Didn't know what he was going to see.
Yeah,
right.
So it goes on, and then there's different timelines, and there's different locations. But he sees a network of underground tunnels and underground civilization, very tall people, the cryogenic chambers, like I told you about, and he was able to communicate with them in these chambers. And he's like, "How can we help you? What can we do to help?" And they said, "Nothing. We need to just wait here because we're waiting for our people to come back." Then he actually was able to follow one of the launches where they did leave the planet, and they found another planet that was very volatile and full of volcanic activity. So if just in the future, if you guys ever want to spend a few minutes and read this, it's like 9 pages. Yeah. It's an amazing read. And I have a good friend that's a psychologist, and he's also like a human lie detector. And he went through this and he said, "Yeah, this is legit. This isn't somebody making something up and then uploading it on the CIA's website. Like, this is a legit."
You're not going to get to upload it on the CIA website anyway. Okay. So so he sees these tall people. It says there. It says, I see dead people. No, he says he sees tall people. Yeah, there it is. A very tall shadow of people, very tall, thin. It's only a shadow, but it's they were, so he's seeing these entities that are strange to him, much like people have seen here on Earth, strange entities.
Yeah. And what makes it very interesting is how large he describes them. very large in stature.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about this, and then you look at, for example, Total Recall. Total Recall came out in 1990. Arnold. And what happened to Arnold, man? He went so far down the. Anyway, that's
another podcast.
Terminator.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's been terminated almost. Yeah. Yeah.
You're free.
Now, poor Arnold. But anyway, in 1990, this film comes out where Arnold is a secret agent that has his mind altered, so he can't remember that he's a secret agent because they want him to go do some more secret agent stuff. But what's really cool about the film is you can travel to other planets. And one of the planets that you could travel to is Mars. And Mars is a planet that is ran by this, we'll call him an oxygen tycoon, because he sells oxygen to the people so they can survive on Mars. Well, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, folks, at the end of the film, Arnold gets to the top of a pyramid that is 1 million years old, and he pushes this button at the very top. It's 4 fingers on the top, but he pushes this button on the pyramid, and the pyramid is like it creates oxygen, so it fixes the atmosphere of Mars, basically is what it does. It's 1 million years old, 1 million-year-old pyramid that the oxygen tycoon doesn't want to be activated because he won't be able to make his money selling oxygen. Well, this pyramid that's described in this film is also described 6 years prior in the remote viewing session. They see a giant pyramid that's about 1 million years old. Do you see the pattern here?
Okay.
So many films that come out later, there's oftentimes some underlying theme that's legit.
Yeah.
So obviously Hollywood,
they're getting so there's some consulting going on from from one of the 3-letter agencies. Periodically in almost every film they give us a little bit of something so that they can put that into the film. And even to the point of predictive programming, right? I mean, we're definitely seeing predictive programming all the way through Hollywood, throughout movies, and then all of a sudden they show you something, and then that exact technology or that exact situation or discovery happens. Well, it's because they're releasing a little bit at a time. It's quite interesting.
It is. It's fascinating, and also I find it fascinating that the film Stargate. This is one of my favorite films, came out in 1994, describes this technology that allows for transportation from planet to planet without a big flying saucer. You're actually doing it through these stargates. And that makes more sense to me versus space travel. If you're going to travel from point A to point B, the amount of radiation and exposure to cosmic radiation in the elements it's pretty insane. So if you can go from point A to point B with some type of stargate, that would make more sense. Now, I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Jerry Wills who claims that they opened some Stargate in Peru many years ago through certain sounds, and that he even had other people do it, and he made him sign some type of like disclaimer before they did it. Yeah. Or like if you disappear and don't come back, it's not our fault kind of thing. So,
okay.
I can't validate that. It could be legit, but a lot of people think that place is a Stargate. It's actually pretty common now. You can see it online. It looks like a big door just carved into the rock halfway. And so anyway, just something to think about, because a lot of people are like, well, Rex, the whole Nibiru theory where the Anunnaki came here from Nibiru and then made altered people that do the work so they could mine their gold, that there's a lot of things that don't kind of add up. Now, there might be some truth to that, but I've got a lot of information about the Anunnaki that I can share with you guys that is actually quite different than what a lot of people think. Now, the fascinating thing about the Anunnaki is I've been researching the Anunnaki now for, like 7-8 years, and I've read probably close to 100 ancient Sumerian tablets and all the data that I can find from ancient Babylon and Sumer connecting the Anunnaki. And in some references, it connects the Anunnaki to the planets. And then in other references in these old tablets, it talks about the Anunnaki more like beings. I just read another translation of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and it described the Anunnaki as the lords of hell, which I thought was pretty interesting. But the Stargate project, when we talk about the Stargate project, the CIA was involved in, that was remote viewing. That wasn't like an actual Stargate.
Right.
This is Valley Marineris. And this is a canyon on Mars. If you have a telescope, you can see this yourself. It looks like it takes up about a third of the face of Mars. This is a valley or a canyon that makes the Grand Canyon look small in comparison. And if you've ever been to the Grand Canyon is called Grand Canyon for a reason. It's magnificent. It's enormous. The current theories on, like, okay, if you look at this, doesn't it look like something just sliced?
Like something scraped it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was most likely from electrical discharge when Venus broke out of orbit with Mars, because Venus and Mars had a really nice orbit, and our ancestors would reference them in plays. Like they would do plays and teachings of the stars and the planets through glorifying them as gods or deities. So Mars would often be referenced as Dumazit or Dumazi. Inanna or Ishtar was often referenced as Venus. So you can read these old stories, these mythological stories of Dumazit and Inanna being in love. And then there's an ancient Sumerian tablet called Inanna's Descent to the Netherworld. And it describes how Inanna actually goes into hell and is hung on a hook for 3 days, and then comes out of hell and then gives Dumazit up to the demons as a sacrifice so that she can stay out of hell. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that actually means. And astrotheologically, I think it might have something to do with Venus breaking orbit. But it is certainly astrotheological when I say astrotheology, I'm talking about astrology and mythology incorporated in these ancient cuneiform tablets, because that's how much of Babylon and ancient Sumer was created. They said, let's bring heaven on earth. What they're talking about is lining up their buildings with the stars and the planets and passing certain laws during specific times of, whether it be like the solar equinox or the spring equinox or some type of astrological event. They were very meticulous on how they would pass these laws and how they would run civilizations. So what we're looking at right here is most likely an event that took place that was so catastrophic, the people that lived on Mars at the time had to leave. They had to leave and they had to go to Earth. And so when you read about the Watchers in the Book of Enoch, if you look at it as a possibility of, like, how do I put this? The Watchers could actually be from Mars. That's one of my theories right now, is the Watchers were a highly advanced civilization on Mars. An event took place that wiped out civilization as they knew it, and they had to find somewhere else to go. Then they set up camp in Egypt, El Cairo, and then they build pyramids, and then the Earth people obviously are doing it too. They're trying to mimic. So it wasn't just like, we can go back a very, very long time ago and look at some of these incredible structures like Göbekli Tepe, the pre-Younger Dryas event. And I don't think those were made by aliens. I think people made those.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, Heidi's been studying Göbekli Tepe. That's over in Turkey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's been studying that quite a while because she studies some of the ancient scripts, and then she studied that, and she said, it's done definitely by humans. It's humans, and it's a temple. I mean, they found this temple, so they were worshiping there. I don't know exactly what their type of religion they had, or the type of gods they were worshiping, but it was certainly some kind of a sacred temple and surrounding. And this is quite a large. This was a civilization there, and we're talking. I mean, this is the oldest structures I think that we've found so far. Am I right on that? Maybe on the Earth that we have found, at least the oldest temple.
That's what modern archaeologists are saying. That Göbekli Tepe and Quran Tepe, or Tepe, Tepe, are the oldest structures that we know about, and some of them are actually pre-Younger Dryas event. And so, folks, if you don't know what the Younger Dryas event is, the Younger Dryas event was an event that took place over hundreds of years. That at one point North America was basically on fire. We're talking asteroids and comets and major solar activity, where it basically reset civilization. And a lot of mythology was created after those events. So
because of those events, they created the mythology.
Yeah. So like, imagine everything's good, your things are awesome. Everything's great. Everything's been great for thousands of years. And then all of a sudden the earth changes drastically, and you see entire cities getting wiped out from giant lightning bolts, comets, and solar flares. And then the amount of radiation coming in because the earth's magnetosphere is weakened. So people have to go hide in caves during the daytime and they get fried. But that's going to make you question reality. You're going to start to be like, man, did we make God mad? And what is God? And do we have to give something up in return, or so that, I think, changed and fractured the mindset of many people, like trying to figure out, like, where did we go wrong? What did we do? And how could we make sure that doesn't happen again? So it's a very, very powerful event that's still, I think, embedded in our subconscious and our DNA, those events that took place.
Yeah.
Like we're a species of amnesia, we don't really, we have bits and pieces from the scriptures and different teachings that have been passed on throughout the generations, but it still seems like there's a big piece missing there. This is Enki and Ninmah. This is an ancient Sumerian tablet that is estimated to be about 5,500 years old. And I don't think this is the original story. I think that there were stories about this that are far older. But Enki is oftentimes considered an ancient Sumer, one of the progenitors of humans. And there's Enki and Enlil are typically there's three, like the Trinity in ancient Sumer and ancient Babylon, as far as the male aspect goes, would be Anu, Enlil, and Enki. Anu would be the father of the Anunnaki. Enlil would be his son, and Enki is sometimes looked at as an outsider. Like some scriptures don't know where he came from, and some say he came from Anu. But regardless, Enki is considered one of the smartest deities in this Sumerian pantheon thousands of years ago. In this tablet, Enki he's sleeping in the Great Abzu, and his mom comes and wakes him up, and she says, Enki, the gods, lowercase g, folks, it's title, lowercase, they're doing too much work. You need to make a replacement for them because they're working too hard. And so Enki's like, okay. So Enki gets together with Ninmah, and they start making people, literally. They're like, okay, well, we're going to take some of this clay, and then we're going to make this person. And as they're making people, they're drinking beer. They're literally drinking beer, making people. And I'm like, see, things haven't changed much.
Yeah, we've got people now. We're growing organs in laboratories.
Yeah,
we're cloning species, including, no doubt, people. No doubt. No doubt. We're using CRISPR to change DNA to design. We're making designer people and drinking beer. Okay, so I'm sure that hasn't changed. So that's your point. Is because I think a lot of times in this world we live in, we think we're the smartest kid on the block, and we think we're the first ones to discover DNA manipulation or genetic manipulation. But I just think that everything that has been will be. In other words, I think that this has already happened. I don't know exactly who or how far back. I mean, I can read about the Nephilim. I can read about the fallen angels and creating the Nephilim on the earth in Genesis chapter 6, okay, let's say in the biblical text. But this manipulation of human DNA, this isn't a new thing. We're Johnny-come-lately to the party. I mean, this has been happening, right? And so we shouldn't be shocked by anything that may take place in this era we're in now, in this time that we're in now. I think anything and everything's possible, and you're onto something here. This is a technology that has already been discovered. I mean, maybe we're just downloading this ancient technology again, redoing what we've already done in the past.
Yeah, that's great point. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Cyclical events, timelines. Yeah. What's I think this is actually pre-Adam. And I'll give my theory on this as to why. It's just as far as the story goes. They're making people, and they're making mistakes along the way. Like they make one person that can't stand up. They make one person that can't see. They make one person they call an idiot. And they're like, so what are we going to do with this one? And then Ninmah says, well, let's give the idiot to the king. And I was like, oh, politics. Now I understand. If you read through this, they have a multitude of beings that they try and make, and they're making mistakes along the way. So it almost kind of sounds like a laboratory setting where, like you said, DNA, CRISPR type technology. And now we're seeing that. Did you read about the organoids, which are basically miniature brains that are playing Pong?
Yes, I did. That's going on right now. Yes. I mean, that's, the Nazis did a lot of this they tried to. I mean, they did all these weird experiments where they were messing with living organisms,
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, and so we've been, man has been so curious with the creative power. When you look at, if we look at, God, the creator of all things, if we think, okay, he's a creator of all things, and we're created by him, but we're also wanting to create things. So we're made in his image and likeness. So we find ourselves going around trying to create things. Okay. Because since we're creators too, we want to be creators. I think maybe we're
co-creators.
Yeah. I don't think we're doing that great, but I mean, we're trying, and so we're creating more Frankenstein type things more than we are anything else. But yeah, I mean, there's this urge, I guess, to mimic the creator by being creators ourselves.
Well, we've always, if you don't have the viewpoint of, it's monolithic structures and what you were just showing us, Rex, the pyramids and the face on Mars, and Machu Picchu, right, the Great Pyramids. If you don't have the viewpoint that, the aliens had an impact with building this, and you went with Pastor's scenario, which I think, we are creators, right? So unfortunately, a lot of the ancient sites like Machu Picchu and Stonehenge, there's a lot of lost records back then because, right, writing and reading and language was still developing at the same time. But now you can see, where we are now. What are we building now? We're building AI and AI and AI and funneling $500 billion or however much money they're putting into it. But yeah, Pastor, I think, one of the major things, you could say that why are we even put here? Well, a lot of people search for meaning for why they even are here in the first place.
Right.
Everything a lot of people have in common is people are always building something, right? Always building the shelter, building these great cities as well.
Yeah. And some of it is underground. I mean, a lot. If we talk about the underground cities and some of the underground preparation for the apocalypse, we're always building things, but we're also trying to figure out a way to survive the catastrophe. Which obviously there's been more catastrophes. We know about, Noah's Ark and Noah in the time of the flood. We know about the plagues of Egypt, but we know about certain events and volcanic eruptions and tsunamis and just all kinds of different things and asteroid impacts. So we're always creating, but we're always preparing for survival. I think it's just part of our human nature. And at the same time, I think that's been going on for forever. I mean, really, since the dawning of civilization, is to prepare for the unknown. And you talk about those monolithic, and you said you have some petrographs you can show us as well.
Yeah. So you're gonna love this, you guys. This blew my mind when I saw this. There we go. This is called. So first of all, this is a paper that's called Characteristics for the Occurrence of a High Current Z Pinch Aurora as Recorded in Antiquity. So what the heck does that mean? That means that, so Anthony Perrott is a scientist at Los Alamos Labs. He's not doing any experiments to show what petroglyphs look like. He's doing experiments with exuberant amounts of plasma in a laboratory to see, what are these plasma effects going to be like? What happens if we put 1 million watts of plasma into this funnel? And what he came up with is absolutely incredible. And I think that it links to a lot of the petroglyphs and a lot of the iconography or symbolism or symbols that are passed on through history I think it was something that when I say the heavens, I'm referring to like space, the sky.
Right. Right.
And I think that's what a lot of times they're talking about in ancient scriptures. Now, I definitely also believe that there's a place that we go after our body leaves physically, and there's different realms and stuff, and I can talk about that in another podcast. But as far as this goes, our ancestors saw something took place in the heavens that was so magnificent. It was also so frightening that it was deified. It was turned into a symbol. It was turned into a god or a messenger. As you can see right here, what this is showing the Earth where Birkeland currents that come out of the Earth and plasma effects. To the right here is a depiction of an intense auroral funnel, which would basically be like plasma at high amounts shooting out of the Earth and creating this orb. And in a laboratory, what Anthony Perrott did was he made a bunch of these different plasma energies that look like petroglyphs. And he wasn't doing it to make them look like petroglyphs. This is something that was discovered later. If you see this right here, figure number 5, this is a conical inflow of a current conducting plasma column. Excuse me. The flow is from top to bottom with striations in the body of the column and the beginning of a plasma feature at the top center. Well, and you can also see these looks like plasma circles or like a ladder, kind of like Jacob's ladder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look at this. So these were done in the laboratory with high levels of plasma. These were the conceptual software, they had software also running these experiments. So they were doing physical experiments and software experiments to see what the plasma will create. You can see it creates these circles, right?
Right.
These circles. And then down here, you have what looks kind of like a ladder, like somebody's climbing up the ladder. Well, the more we look at this, and then you can see you have these cloud forms that are created through plasma. They'll look like, I don't know, almost kind of like water droplets, I guess you could say. Here we go. Check this out. Look at these petroglyphs. So these petroglyphs are seen around the world. And they're oftentimes with hands up, and it's called the squatter man.
Yeah.
You can see it from Taiwan to Armenia. And if you look at this, and then look at this one in China right here, compare this to what we were just looking at with high levels of plasma right up here. And then this guy right here looks like he's holding his hands up. Actual plasma in a laboratory. Well, check this out.
But when you showed those petroglyphs, they were almost identical. Those 3 are almost identical. Okay. And they're from total different civilizations on different areas of the world. And how in the world are they drawing the same thing? And the Navajos, very similar. Armenia, very similar. The Tucson, Arizona one, I mean, they're all very similar. How?
Yeah.
How? Unless there's interaction going on between the human civilization and some type of, whether it be an angelic being or an interdimensional being or some type of unexplained. I mean, how do they see the same thing? I mean,
okay, check this out. This is going to blow your mind. Imagine something happens that's so catastrophic. It blows my mind. Maybe not yours. I just get excited when I talk. That's all right. So you see this plasma shooting out of the Earth. Well, I don't know if it's Planet X, if it was what caused, Venus and Mars.
Okay.
Whatever. Something happened. And when this happened, there's this huge plasma funnel shooting out of the Earth thousands of miles into the sky, thousands of miles into the atmosphere.
So that you can see it from anywhere in the world. That's what you're saying.
Yep. And different places in the world, it's going to look a little bit different.
Right.
So imagine seeing this thing like going like this.
When it could be actually a plasma manifestation of the plasma, and it's so high and so gigantic and so enormous that the people on the Earth in different civilizations are drawing what they see, and what they see is going to be similar. Is what you're saying. That's a possibility.
100%. And these are actual petroglyphs that I took photos of in Bluff, Utah. So
Wow.
Bluff, Utah, like when you look at these petroglyphs, look at these things on top of their heads.
Right.
Yeah, what
Like,
in the
what-
world? So where were you?
This-
So you were in Bluff, Utah. Did you have to go climbing up somewhere to get these pictures, or were they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but you guys could go there. You guys are definitely in good enough shape. You could go
I
there.
don't think I'm in good enough shape. I don't know. Do they have an elevator? I mean, do they have certain elevators or a sky lift up there?
Yeah.
Paul, maybe you.
I
But,
mean,
okay.
those things on top of their heads, like from just looking at it and not really doing too much research or anything about it, you could almost
that.
say, well, does that make them, a higher status in their civilization? Is that like a halo effect thing?
Yeah, they're like kachinas. These are kachinas, basically. These are lowercase g. These are the gods.
Like they're little gods that they were worshiping or they were acknowledging or what have you. No matter what.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I understand.
I don't think they're necessarily worshiping them, but they're paying homage.
Recognizing. Definitely recognizing. Okay.
So when we go back to the
Let me ask you a question. How in the world did these guys hanging on the side of the wall paint these? I mean, draw these things, carve these things? I mean, what were they hanging on? Where was their scaffolding?
Exactly. And it's the older stuff, in my opinion, the older petroglyphs are usually higher, like the way they peck them in stone, it's magnificent. It's incredible the way that they could do that. And so look at this right here, the plasma stuff in a laboratory.
Yeah.
And then look at this.
Yeah, it's very, very, very
It's-
similar.
It's
Very.
incredible. Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's very, very similar.
this is in Utah.
Yeah.
This is in India, or this is by Angkor Wat. So Cambodia. Look at what's right above this guy's head.
Oh my, it's
Yeah.
almost the exact same thing.
Interesting.
It's identical.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
These, I know. Speaking of halos, good observation.
Yeah.
These are halos. And then here, let's look at some of these other photos here. So you'll notice like the Starhead man, and he has an X in his body. You'll notice even some of them, they'll have figures that are upside down, which represents something with like this guy right here looks like a little mini Yoda, but it's not.
Right.
They're actually this is what they saw most likely in the heavens. So they're paying homage, they're glorifying it, and it's almost like a form of alchemy to them, or magic almost in a sense. It's like it's a connection. Like, look at this.
Look at that.
Large,
Yeah. He's holding the two larger beings, and they all have their halo rings above their heads.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable that that's on the side of a
very
mountain in Utah.
I mean, you could also look at it maybe as, I don't know, maybe these individuals, even there too, maybe that those discs are like a form of enlightenment of them, or, like a bodhisattva Buddha thing, or even you could even go as far to say, well, maybe that, that's the portal of their abduction if somebody witnessed seeing that as well. I don't really know how to explain it. There's just some
UFO sucks them up. It's like,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I could see where you
Like,
come
beam
up
me
with
up, Scotty, kind of from the Star Trek Enterprise. Beam me up, Scotty, through this tunnel. Is this a wormhole? Who knows? But the question is, how does this keep happening in different locations around the globe? And what you're saying, Rex, is that there's a possibility that there was this massive plasma manifestation, enormous event that was so big that that civilizations from around the world all saw it, and then they started carving and drawing pictures and making reference to this event.
And those were created into symbols, and it was also created into a language. So many years later, they would pass these on, and 1,000 years later, the squatter man that has his hands up doesn't mean giant plasma event. It means welcome. It means hello. How are you?
Right.
So these are adopted through the ages, and they have different meanings through the ages. But where did the origin come from? And the research that I have done leads me all back to the Younger Dryas event. A major plasma event takes place. Could it have been Planet X? It could have been. I mean, I've interviewed people like Wal Thornhill before he passed, which is one of the top researchers in electric universe. And his theory is that Jupiter was actually a activated star at one point, and that Saturn was an activated star at one point. So imagine if we were in a completely different orbit with a completely different star, and then something happens that basically shuts off that star, and then we get pulled in towards our sun now.
Right.
Yeah. So this is Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is considered by many to be like a giant.
Yeah.
Or
he was considered a giant.
Now, when he's holding this lion, what that actually most likely is Leo.
Okay.
Like the constellation.
Oh, you're talking about in the constellations. Okay.
Yeah. Now he was referenced as a giant, but I just went through and read another translation of the Epic of Gilgamesh, did a podcast on it. And in this translation, it specifically states the Anunnaki are the judges of hell. What does that mean? Well, if we go back to that time, hell might actually be like inner earth to them.
Right.
Where the heavens are space.
Right.
To them,
right.
To an extent. So, but it does specifically describe the Anunnaki as judges of hell. It specifically describes the Anunnaki as, once these events took place, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, because there's these events that take place that are catastrophic. Like, it describes Inanna, which is, I think, Venus. I don't know if it's if they're describing Inanna as like a woman or a goddess, but Inanna gets upset because Gilgamesh won't marry her in this story. And this story is the oldest story that we have access to. It's called the Epic of Gilgamesh. And Gilgamesh is 1/3 God, or 2/3 God and 1/3 human, or vice versa. So he would be actually considered
a Nephilim. Yeah, he'd be considered a Nephilim. Yep.
Well, his best friend is Enkidu, which kind of reminds me of like a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, because Enkidu is this giant dude that's covered in hair. And they become best friends. And Inanna wants to be with Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh says no. So Inanna gets furious, and she goes to Anu, which is the father of the Anunnaki. And she says, give me the bowl of heaven so that I can take out Gilgamesh, because he wouldn't take my hand and he wouldn't be with me. So Anu's upset, but he gives her the bowl of heaven. Now let's think about that for a minute. The bowl of heaven, what does that mean? Bowl of heaven, is that like some complex weaponry? Is it a giant spaceship with nukes? Most likely, it's referring to Taurus in the sky. Taurus.
Okay. The constellation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I did some more research, and Venus exalts Taurus.
Okay.
So it's talking about Inanna getting the bowl of heaven from Anu to go take out Gilgamesh. I think it's referring to an astrological event that took place. Venus breaks orbit, causes these major cataclysms on Earth, even because these electrical arcs are so intense. Not only are they hitting Mars, but potentially hitting Earth, like the Grand Canyon. There's some new research coming out suggesting that the Grand Canyon was created through massive electrical arcing and, of course, water erosion, etc., but not just water erosion. So then, now let's think about Medusa for a minute. Remember Medusa? She's like this woman with snakes on her head.
Oh, yeah.
Medusa could be referencing Venus in the sky when it broke orbit with Mars, like a comet, like Velikovsky described, like we just read about in that remote viewing project, where the gentleman remote viewed a planet-sized comet wiping out Mars, as it was known at the time.
It went by.
So what happened? I think that's all connected here. I think all of this is connected. And in doing so, those that had a high civilization on Mars had to leave from Mars, and they had to go to Earth. They set up camp on Earth, and they were much larger on Mars because of the gravitation and the effects of the gravity. They come to Earth. They fall in love with Earth women. They know that there's going to be consequences. And the Nephilim that are born, or that are referred to as the Nephilim because they're part human, part something else, they're very large in stature. And some of them could have been like, because I've always been torn with this. It's like in mainstream academia with religion, the Nephilim are often considered like pretty much all evil. At least that's my opinion. What I read about them, it seems like they're eating people, they're doing terrible things, they're giants, and there definitely was probably a lot of that going on. There were a lot of humans doing the same thing,
Right?
A lot of them. So I don't necessarily think that all of the Nephilim are bad or evil or cursed. Now, I could be way wrong here, and this is just my opinion, but it seems to me like whoever came here and established these incredible dynasties where they look like giants, they've got these elaborate headdresses, some of them have elongated skulls. Like, what happened? How did that happen? Was it because the genetics of the two, that's what was created? And that's my theory. And I asked Kristen about this once. I mean, Christian has a strong Christian background as well. I said, why are the Nephilim always getting such a bad rap? And she goes, well, Rex, she goes, look at the Nephilim like the orcs in the Lord of the Rings. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. They're like the orcs. But anyway, so Gilgamesh, in this story of Gilgamesh, a lot of people have read the Epic of Gilgamesh, and they think that the Epic of Gilgamesh describes aliens. And it could, but a lot of it is astrotheology. A lot of it is describing, like when it talks about the mountain of the twins, or the twin mountain, I think it's referring to the constellation Gemini. When it talks about how Gilgamesh has to get in this boat and travel and he has to go fight these giant lions, it's referring to the constellation Leo. Then he has to go fight the Scorpion Man. That's referring to the constellation Scorpio. It's describing a story where, like, it's a spiritual journey where Gilgamesh he needs to find immortality because he's scared now, because his friend his best friend gets killed by the bull of heaven. So now he's looking for Utnapishtim. Utnapishtim is often referred to as Enoch. A lot of people think Utnapishtim is Enoch, because Utnapishtim leaves Earth the same way that Enoch does. He's given eternal life, and then he's also you can read in the Epic of Gilgamesh. It has the flood story. It has the boat, the ark that's made, and it has a different description of the ark, and it has a different description of it talks about 7 days instead of 40 days. So there are some differences, but there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah,
and so it appears that Gilgamesh. What if Gilgamesh was actually part Martian? Like, what if the Watchers are actually Martians? I don't know.
We don't know. Well, we know God. We know God made this entire massive solar system, beyond solar system, universes and universes. Let me ask you a question, Rex, because inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah,
we're in the age of disclosure. Apparently, the government. There's more and more government hearings. Marco Rubio is pounding that we need to have these files released. The hearings are starting to come more often. Is it UFO, UAP, USO, unidentified subterranean objects? So in the age of disclosure, why is, and do you think that the government of the United States, and all governments for that matter, are being so reluctant to share what they know? Are they afraid of what they know? Are they afraid of the reaction of what the people will say? Well, okay, can you explain a little bit what you think that means?
So, first of all, let's go back to Project Blue Book.
Okay.
Project Blue Book was created to, like, you see a UFO, you think you see an alien, tell us about it. We're the Air Force. We want to hear about it.
Right.
Well, I just found this out, declassified file, half of the sightings during that time period, right before Blue Book was founded, was because of the U-2 spy plane.
Okay.
Pilots are seeing it. They don't know what the heck it is.
Right.
So far above them, and yet they're not used to it. So Project Blue Book was established to control the narrative.
Okay.
Oh, you think you see aliens? You think you're seeing UFOs? Tell us about it.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, probably Little Green Man. It's not a CIA spy plane. No. Now we've got Arrow, and then Arrow one day will come out and they'll say, "Oh, that's we did like, for example, the silver orb, or what?
The disc. Yeah, the silver. Yeah.
Kristen and I saw a metallic orb in Pagosa Springs during the daytime at the 11 o'clock position, not more than 50, 75 feet off the ground. We both saw it. It was solid. 1 second it's there, the next second it's gone. So I have seen UFOs.
Yeah.
Now, this could have been some kind of, I mean, I'm not far from Dulce.
Yeah, it could have been a government, it could have been a DARPA project.
Yep, absolutely.
Maybe not.
These are the kind of UAPs that are outside of the spectrum of drones. Like, these have been seen by many people around the world. I have another friend that lives in Pagosa Springs that said she saw one of these spheres, but she saw markings on it. The sphere that I and Kristen saw, that we saw, had no markings on it. It was completely silver, metallic. Where am I going with this? The Project Arrow that we're seeing now in these projects, like, for example, they had that one video footage of that UFO, and then there was another one that came out that was filmed over the Middle East, and then Arrow comes back and says, well, you know, we did the trigonometry on this, and it's not moving as fast as you think it is. And so that's kind of where they left it. So first of all, how many people know trigonometry? Like, no. So you could say, we did the trigonometry. It's not what you think. All right, next question. So I think this whole Arrow thing is just another, my opinion, just another ploy.
No, the smoke screen.
Absolutely. Because you know what? They've been here. They've been here a long time. They've been here probably as long as we have, or just about. And they have firmly, and I say they, I'm talking about non-human intelligence. There is a very powerful behind-the-scenes influence that seems to orchestrate events far beyond most humans' mindset. And I mean, I think they've done it before. I think they've done it on like, it's a blueprint that can be used on not just on Earth, but other planets. And you know what? You were bringing up like humanity earlier. We're called humankind for a reason. Humankind. Think about that. We're here to be kind. We're here to be stewards of the Earth. Maybe there's going to be something that happens in the future that would be catastrophic if human engineering wasn't here, that would destroy the planet. But maybe we'll come up with a way to stop an asteroid or stop some type of cataclysm. Maybe there's more to it than what we've been told. And that's,
yeah. Well, I think there's no doubt with the fact that we're doing all this, how to blow up asteroids incoming. I mean, look, this is, we're actually testing that technology out there on asteroids that aren't going to hit us. It's as if we know that the clock is ticking and we have to deal with some incoming that they're not going to tell us about. You're not going to go over to spaceweather.com and search this list and it's not going to be on there because everything on there is missing us. I mean, they're not putting anything on there that looks like it's going to hit us. We are tracking Apophis. We know that's coming in 4 years. We got this UR4, and it's coming in 2032. And those are two that they've let us know in that are supposed to scrape past us if the calculations are right. But really, if there's the next report we get is, don't worry, there's nothing headed our way for at least 100 years. Then why are you out there testing on how to blow this thing up? Apparently something's coming. Apparently, why are we building underground cities if there's no reason for a catastrophe? There's no catastrophe unless you know there's coming a catastrophe. So I just wonder sometimes, is all of this or not all of this, but is some of this protection of information has to do with and we have movies now. I mean, the movie just came out. Did you see Paradise?
Oh yeah, and actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I was thinking about that when I saw that. I thought to myself, you know what? I know where that is. And this is kind of spooky because I just said I did a podcast about it and I said, you know what? I think I know where that is. And I didn't say where, but then somebody left a comment in the comment section the next day and they said, Rex, you know exactly where that is. I live by the sand dunes. And I was like, oh my gosh. Whoa. So reading my mind again. Yes. That's weird.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. But they really are, building these, and there's several major governments of the world are doing it. I've even interviewed guys who drive semi-trucks down deep into the earth, hauling a load of something that they don't know what's in there. And then when they get so far down in there, there's this massive cafeteria, and there's 1,000 people sitting there eating. They're sitting there with their trays, and the trucks are lined up. And then somebody comes and gets their truck and takes their trailer away, and then brings it back to them empty, and then After about an hour, they get back in their truck and they drive their way back out of there, out of the Appalachian Mountains, deep under the Appalachians. And then the next day, there's a $15,000 wire transfer from the government into their bank. Okay?
Wow.
I know a guy who does that, and he does not know what's...
Okay, job.
Yeah, and he said when you're driving down there, said there's massive tunnels and they're vaults, and they have combinations on them. And if you was to open those vaults, you could drive a semi through them. So that means there's a tunnel. But he has no idea where those tunnels are going or what's in there. He's just told you drive 2.5 miles deep into the earth, and you'll come to this place where there is this wide open place to park your rig. You'll see others parked, and go on into the cafeteria and go get your tray, sit down, relax, take an hour, and then you're going to leave. And this is confidential stuff. And this guy did it for a while, and he finally kept saying, man, what are we doing? What is this about? I don't know. You know, he was freaking out, but he did share it with me. So there's things going on. Why in the world would you be doing that if there's no reason to be doing that? I don't know the answers. Is it just to protect ourselves from a nuclear fallout, a nuclear holocaust? You know, I don't know the answer. But there's things we don't know that is being done, and then we don't know, but we know this, and that's why we do this webinar. We interviewed 15 people on this webinar who had encounters that we just did it. People that just everyday Americans who we said, if you have a story, come to us. Paul, you know that. We took 2.5 hours with these folks, and they're very believable, and they're very honest, and they're just a small sampling of the thousands and thousands of people out there who are having encounters. To deny it, to say it doesn't exist, to say people are not having experiences. I had a guy call me on the phone last night. I can't give you his name or anything, but the guy was in tears. He's crying. He's emotional over an experience he had in his life. And when he tries to tell family or friends about it, people just think he's nuts. And he's saying, look, I mean, can somebody help me explain? You know, what was this? What did they do to me? Why did they do this to me? And I mean, he was very emotional, very, very emotional. And there's no way he's just, you know, why would it's something happened to him.
That kind of goes back to as well, like Pastor, you're talking about, you know, people that, or you've interviewed people as well that drive these semis into, this side of the mountain tunnels, right, underground cities. I mean, you also, it makes you wonder, I mean, we've had the space race for forever with the Cold War.
Right.
But now we have, Space Force, and we're investing probably half the defense budget, to be honest with you, into that. But, Rex, you talked about too, and we mentioned making reference to movies. So I was thinking about Armageddon, Pastor, when you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis.
Well, like, what do they know? Like, different, what are we preparing for? But Rex, I wanted to ask you a question I wrote out here as well. I don't know. I'm not fully convinced either way to say yes or no about aliens or ETs. I don't. Your answer doesn't have to do with that at all. But if there's one piece of suppressed knowledge or hidden evidence, right, that they always keep from us, that you think would change the world, what do you think that would be?
Well, I definitely think that would be some type of wormhole technology, like Project, the Philadelphia experiment, and then look into the Malaysia MH370 flight with orbs, where it shows these mysterious orbs or spheres circling this plane, and then the plane disappears, and there's two different pieces of footage that showed this happen. I think if that was disclosed, I think that would change everything. Because knowing that you get from point A to point B without rocket fuel, you could show up in somebody's house. Oh, wait a second, kind of like these interesting grays that some people that I'm really close to have had experiences with, where they just appear and then they disappear, and they think that it's like interdimensional. They think these beings are interdimensional based on the way that they show up, and they could be, but it could also be a technology that allows for them to show up in your room right next to you while you're sleeping and like vibrate in your room, and then they're physical, and then they grab you, do stuff to you, and then they vibrate out of existence. That's what makes a lot of people think that these things are interdimensional. But
Yeah.
one of the to answer your question also, and I wanted to get to this point. I'll get to it now with you guys. Is recently somebody had reached out to me and given me their testimony on their experiences, and they've had a lifetime of experiences. They have a military security clearance. I can't say exactly what yet. Hopefully I can soon. But the descriptions that the guy that gave me this description of his experiences, the way that he described it, is exactly like another very close friend of mine that I've interviewed many times. He hasn't publicly came out and said too much yet, but he will. He's been in the aerospace business for years. He's super genius, super intelligent. It appears so. It's always fascinating to hear the story about somebody getting abducted if it's legit. I mean, this is what the kind of stuff that I love this kind of stuff, and it's fascinating to me. But what I find even more fascinating is when I talk to people that have security clearances and that work in the military or subcontractors for the military, and the stuff that they're working on when they have these experiences. It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you're working on super top secret stuff and you're getting abducted by something that's non-human. That's a bit interesting here. And so maybe that's why they're never going to fully disclose aliens. Maybe that's why they haven't already, because even with the most amazing technologies that our military has, they still can't control these things coming in and out of people's rooms, abducting them, doing whatever they do, and then taking them back. So the most recent conversations that I've been having with somebody in particular, they aren't even sure if their physical body is being abducted. They think it's more like their spirit is being taken out. And the way that they just, so I've had out-of-body experiences before. And if you've ever had an out-of-body experience, it's absolutely amazing. The first one I had that I remember was I was in my mid-20s and it just happened naturally. I'm going to sleep. And as I'm going to sleep, I pop out of my body. It freaks me out. I'm like, oh my gosh, man, am I going to be able to get back in? Is there going to be a demon that's going to, take over my body? What's going on? So I wake myself back up and then okay, it's cool. And then I start to go to sleep again, pop out of my body again. It freaks me out. Well, I get back in my body and then I start to research out-of-body experiences. I start to research astral projection. I even picked up a book called 90-Day Guide to Astral Projection by Robert Bruce. Was it by Robert Bruce? Anyway, great book. It teaches you how to actually have an out-of-body experience. It gives you like a 90-day blueprint on what to do and what exercises to bounce your consciousness off of walls at night and stuff and kind of pop out of your body. But if you've ever had an out-of-body, the reason I'm bringing this up is I've had out-of-body experiences. I know what it feels like. And when you have an out-of-body experience, before you have an out-of-body experience, you feel like this shaking sensation. You feel this vibration. And almost like, let's say you have a cat or a dog at the foot of your bed and it's like scratching at itself or, cleaning itself or whatever. It's kind of like that feeling before you pop out of your body. Well, the gentleman that I've been talking to that has been sharing with me his experiences, he describes it very similar. Before he gets taken, he has this vibration, and it pops him out of his body, and they do weird stuff to him. And he just had a regression to take him back to see what happened because he wanted to know what happened, and it's made it worse. It's actually made it worse.
So he's in the government with a high clearance. Yeah, he was with a high clearance, and he's involved in experiments. Maybe, it's almost like I'm not going to compare it to Jason Bourne, but could they be messing with people's brains and their minds to make them feel or experience something that's out of this world, which really might be within the psyche of their own soul or their own mind? I don't know. I mean, there's been so much of this kind of, the Manhattan Project, the Philadelphia Project, the MK Ultra. I mean, we got so many different things. You wonder just how much are they messing with people, and do they mess with people that are not even in a high classification DARPA projects? Maybe do they do experiments on the general public, just the civilian public, just to go do it to somebody to see how the reaction, how people are, how's this working? Yeah, I wonder sometimes. I'm not saying that's what happened to this guy, but it's just like the CERN people. The people who work at CERN, many of them are saying they see strange, just absolutely insane beings, things walking, hearing, saying they experience interdimensional type thing. So I just wonder sometimes if we're playing with the veil. I mean, are we trying to pierce the veil? Are we messing in the interdimensional area sometimes, or is this all in the brain and we're not even physically doing it? It's just up here. It's virtual reality kind of. I don't know. As you're just throwing out questions, but people are experiencing things that you can't deny. People are, and a lot of them sound very similar. There's no denying, and to label people and say, "Oh, they're just crazy. They don't understand what's going on." That's wrong. No, there's too many people. There's too many experiences. Maybe we can't figure out exactly the root cause of it all or explain it all, but we have to acknowledge that people are having encounters and experiences that are unexplained.
Big time. And just to add to that, so like imagine there's a cleanup crew. So let's say you have contact with non-human intelligence, like legit contact. And let's say that there's a secret agent that knows about it. Well, then they might just show up and do some weird stuff to you too, so you don't really know what happened.
You don't know.
Black memories. So there's a gentleman that I interviewed that's kind of put the ET phenomena on the map in a big way. And he claims that they even made movies about his experience. And Whitley Strieber, nice guy, great interview. But what was interesting is when he described his experience, like when he got probed and he described the tool that they used, I thought to myself, that's really interesting that if these things come from Zeta Reticuli to abduct you, they're going to need to use a tool similar to what a veterinarian would use on an animal to extract fluids. It sounded identical. So I thought to myself, that is just so weird, man. Zeta Reticuli aliens show up, they pick you up, they abduct you. They want to get some fluids. So they do experiments. So they use the same thing. If they stop at the veterinarian's office, we're going to get that tool. Something's not right there.
Yeah.
But that experience that he had, and I believe he had that experience, I just don't think it was ETs. I think it was like the cleanup crew. So what a great way to just muddy the waters. And he probably had some legit experiences too. Imagine now every time you talk about getting abducted, you joke around about getting probed. What a great way to control the narrative.
Wow.
What a great way.
Wow.
So, I mean, we have nanotechnology now that is like absolutely incredible. They can make clocks out of just several atoms. It's amazing. So to imagine a species traveling here from the Zeta Reticuli, I think this whole Zeta Reticuli thing, I think that is misinformation. Not intentionally by the people that are saying that, but I think that it was put there as misinformation.
Yeah, planted into them. Yeah.
Flying saucers, all the flying saucers that we saw in the 40s and 50s, a lot of that stuff, like we look at it now and we're like, that looks fake. It looks super fake. There was another guy that got caught, total charlatan. He had a whole cult following him where he was showing these pictures of these UFOs. Well, they look like hubcaps, but they were so good. You're like, oh man, he's taking, like, there's people that follow this guy. Like, he even started his own religion. I can't remember the name off the top of his name off the top of my head. Real big in the 60s and 70s. And there was a video that just came out that was of one of his like UFO videos where he forgot to stop recording because the UFO was going like this on a string. Like
that's all we need right there. That did it. That was it. I want to just say thank you for coming and being with Paul and I.
Thank you. It's a real honor. I feel honored and blessed to be able to speak with you guys. And
if people want to watch your podcast, everything, the Leak Project, where can we find you, Rex?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for asking. Patreon, leakproject.com, and youtube.com/clandestine Time Lord. I'm Leak Project on YouTube as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Paul Jr., you got anything else left you want to throw out there before we close?
No, my mind is completely blown. So thank you, Rex, as well as Laura Eisenhower and all of the guests that we had call in for this. I have a lot to research over the next few days.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to do, stimulate people's minds. If you've been thinking about it, we'll talk about it. God bless you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Paul Begley Podcast. New episodes will be released every Tuesday on all major podcast streaming platforms. For a video recording of this episode, you can watch and subscribe on our YouTube channel at Paul Begley Podcast. Hey guys, we want you to connect with us. Follow us on X and Twitter at Paul Begley Pod. We'd love to hear your questions you want us to answer on the show. For additional Paul Begley content, go to our website at paulbegleyprophecy.org. If you've thought about it, we'll talk about it. Paul Begley Podcast.